The bombings began September 7, 1940, and they didn't cease for 8 months. London and up to 15 other cities in the United Kingdom were devastated by bombs, which were dropped nearly every night as part of an aerial attack by Nazi Germany during the war. British Prime Minister Winston Churchill wanted to lead the war from above ground. He wanted to show the people he wasn't afraid. But when one of those bombs damaged his home and office, he had no choice but to move underground, where so many London residents had now lived on a daily basis. "This is the room from which I will lead the war," Churchill said when he first saw the cabinet room, now with maps lining the walls. From his underground office, Churchill made 4 wartime speeches, and from that conference room, he made some of the war's biggest decisions. Our trip to the war rooms came at the end of a long day, which didn't get off to a great start as we got lost in the tube station. Once we reached St. Paul's Cathedral, only 30 minutes late, we met up with our Blitz tour guide. He led us in a loop around the cathedral, which was the only building in London still standing after one of the most devastating air raids of the Blitz on December 29, 1940. In his column, A Dreadful Masterpiece, Ernie Pyle called it the most beautiful sight I have ever seen. We walked through the crowded London streets where Big Ben stood, around the corner from the London Eye, and past Westminster Abbey, before arriving at the end of a much quieter road. Originally known as the Cabinet War Rooms, it's where Churchill and military strategists fought World War II underground for 5 long years. Our group had the opportunity to tour the war rooms during our weekend in London. More than 70 years later, we found them almost exactly the way they were left in March 1945. Construction of the original war rooms began in 1938 and was completed in 1939, shortly before the outbreak of World War II in Europe. 6 years later, they were completely abandoned with the surrender of Japan near the end of the war. We saw Churchill's private office with a sign that said, "Quiet please," hanging above the door because he hated noise. We walked by his kitchen where most of the pots and pans were actually 70 years old. On one door hung every one of the original keys used for each of the underground rooms. We saw the rainbow telephones in the famous transatlantic telephone room. We listened to BBC wartime broadcasts, and we visited the map room, which was constantly in use and guarded by officers of the Royal Navy, British Army, and Royal Air Force. Bridget Murray, a student on the trip, said the way the museum was set up was a new experience for her. More than anything, Murray said she enjoyed learning more about Churchill's secretaries and the role of women living underground in the cabinet rooms. There were some first-hand accounts of the women who worked under Churchill on the recordings, Murray recalled. That's probably one of my favorite parts, to see how women impacted the work of Churchill at those moments.